about cover letters. Every single day this week we are talking about some step that is a fundamental job search step that you will be performing if you are seeking a job. So yesterday we focused on resumes and building a resume and drafting a resume. Today we're talking about cover letters. And these are pieces of persuasive writing. And who better to talk about persuasive writing than two of our Rauch faculty members. So I want to thank you, Professor Flynn and Professor Rauch, for taking the time to be here today and to do this presentation. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about researching employers. And then on Thursday, all of you will have to use a writing sample at some point in the application process, and you may have lots of questions about how to select one, what to do with it. What when that employer asks you to do something that, with the writing sample that you just don't want, like a page length is shorter than writing samples you have. So again, we have Rauch faculty members coming to present on that, and then Friday will be the networking presentation. Okay, so this is a pyramid. I love to talk about it all the time of the job search process. And so many people come into my office and they're like, where's the job boards? Where are the jobs? Just tell me where to go and I'll go get a job. And the process actually doesn't quite unfold that way. I mean, if you look at the pyramid, you'll see that the foundational level is maybe different than you thought, which is you might have thought the foundational level was go find job. Go find job posting somewhere. And it says something different than that. It's a self-assessment, meaning you have to know something about yourself and you have to know what you're targeting. Why do you think this is the foundational level? Why isn't it go find job posting of available jobs? Okay, this is the interactive part. So, if I don't get volunteers, Lewis.
So you can tailor your search and you have a better understanding of what exactly you're looking for.
I think that's an excellent reason why. That's a great reason why. Why else? Why else is this foundational level? Self-assessment, knowing something about yourself, knowing what you're targeting, and not find job advertisements. Okay, let's see here. I have seen you in the APD resource room. Hello, what's your name?
Sorry, Danny.
Danny, you're a first-year student, right?
Yes.
Okay. So why do you think this foundational level is knowing something about yourself, knowing something about what you want to target in order to be effective in the job search process?
I mean, it's important to know what your own interests and strengths are so that you can market yourself towards the jobs that you can actually get and or be happy with.
Yeah, okay, so that's really, really important. I talk to a lot of employers. I talk to them on a daily basis. And one of the things that has become really, was always apparent, always true, but has become, I would say, exponentially even more so in today's legal market, is the fact that these employers really are looking for you to develop a narrative or a theme, both in terms of your cover letter and your resumes. They're different documents. One's narrative, one's not quite so narrative. It's in a resume format, that tie together, that explain to them why you are a fit for their organization. And it is very hard to market yourself if you're just sitting there going, well, this is the same resume I use for everybody. That resume and that cover letter isn't going to be targeted, it's not going to be persuasive, and it's not going to explain to the employer that does family law why you are someone who would be a value to the organization that does that practice area, or IP litigation, or something else. So, you need to know something about yourself. You also need to know something about, if you're really going to be effective, you also need to know something about firms that do that kind of work, or organizations, or public interest agencies that do that kind of work, because otherwise, how do you know how to frame an argument for them and to explain how you might be a person who would add value to their organization? So really with cover letters, we're talking about the bottom 3 levels, well actually all 4 levels of the job search pyramid. We're talking about you have to know the direction you're going in, you need to know something about the audience to whom you're writing, and you need to do some pre-writing work. Professor Flynn's going to talk a little bit about that. And then you actually need to produce these documents, right? You need to produce this cover letter. So, Professor Flynn, I know you really like talking a lot about the value of informational interviews and doing this pre-writing work. Can you talk a little bit from your experience about why that's so important?
Absolutely. First, straw poll. Who knows exactly what they would like to do for the rest of their lives as an attorney? Great. You are all set. The rest of you who don't know what you're doing, you are the norm. It is not normal to enter law school with a precise idea of what you want to do and how you're going to accomplish that. The only way to determine it, and this is part of the self-assessment process, is to go out and speak to lawyers who do what you think you want to do. You will find it very surprising that, indeed, someone who does IP litigation may or may not do the kinds of daily tasks that you think an IP litigator does. You will find out that someone who practices a criminal appellate law may or may not actually interact with their clients. I do criminal appellate law. I have met with 1 client in prison in the 3 years that I have done it. How would I have ever have known that that was true if I had not spoken to someone who does criminal appellate work? So before you start the process of determining what jobs you think you might want, you need to learn something about what kind of works that these lawyers will be doing. The best way to do this is to start with the informational interview. I call this the coffee interview, whatever you'd like to call it. You simply approach lawyers who do what you think you want to do and effectively communicate, "Hi, this is who I am. I would like to learn something about what you do." The underlying trick here is that lawyers are fundamentally egotistical people who like to speak about themselves. If you're not there yet, you will be. Something to look forward to. So if you call up someone and say, "Hi, I hear you're really great at X thing, and I would love to speak with you for 20 minutes about X thing that you do," that person is very likely to respond. Now the first trick is, who do you approach? You approach people who have some interest in what you're trying to do. So if you want to go into transactional work, you go find people who do that. The other trick, of course, is to find people that you can have something in common with. So the easiest trick, of course, is to go to the SCU alum office and find people who are SCU grads. The entire start could be, "Hi, I'm a Santa Clara 1L. You graduated from Santa Clara. We have something in common. Let's talk." That's enough. And you don't even need that much. You could just say, "Hi, you're a lawyer. I'm a law student. Let's talk." It's even better if you can say, "Hi, I have volunteered in my life for my Lutheran ministry who advocated peace work. You happen to sit on a board of a Lutheran organization that advocates peace work." You now have more in common. The more you can create a connection with that person, the more likely they are to respond. A few things in terms of approaching lawyers. 1, recognize lawyers have very little time. 2, most lawyers bill their time, meaning 20 minutes speaking to you is 20 more minutes they have to spend in the office that night to get up to their billable minimum for the day. Recognizing those 2 points, your time is very valuable. I understand that this is possibly an inconvenience to you, but I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Frames the idea that you are someone who's willing to work with them and you understand what they're doing, where they're coming from. You then sit down with them and just ask questions about what it is they do, what kinds of things they do on a daily basis, what kinds of things they wish they did. The question I open up with that I used to open up informational interviews with was, "Are you happy?" The lawyer doesn't have time to dissemble, to figure out what the answer should be. They have no option but to sit there and go, I don't know. If they don't know if they're happy or not, is that what you want to do with your life? I don't think so. I found that most of a certain type of job that I chose not to pursue was that the kind of people who would say, this is good, okay. That's not someone happy. Other types of people you call up and say, "Are you happy?" "Yes, I love my work." That's the kind of job I always wanted. That's the kind of firm that I wanted to work with. That's the kind of government agency I wanted to work with. So, "Are you happy?" is a great first step. And the rest of the informational interview, find out what it is they do. What do they do on a daily basis? What kinds of clients do they have? What are some of the things that they don't enjoy doing? What are the kinds of things they do enjoy doing? What are some areas of law that they wish they had the opportunity to practice in that perhaps they do practice in outside of their main job? They volunteer for Bay Area Legal Aid, or for the Women's Something Network, or for the Christian Something Network. Again, finding that connection that you have with that person that you can share. The reason this is so incredibly valuable is when you start that first paragraph of your cover letter that we'll get to, if the opening of the letter is, I'm writing to apply for this kind of job, and then it dovetails into, having spoken to Mary, Joanne, and Tom about this work and finding out that you do this, this is going to be a great fit for both of us. That cover letter and resume is going to be put in a different pile than the generic, hi, I'm a person who goes to a school, and you have a job, and I need money. If you make the personal connection with someone at that firm, you are going to automatically be moved into the correct pile. The other thing to note about this general thing is give specific times that you would like to meet. It's very easy to not respond to a letter that says, hey, let's talk, as opposed to, are you available on Friday at 3 p.m.? That's a question that person can answer and put it in their calendar. So I find it's much more effective if you find a time that is convenient for you and propose a bunch. By the way, be flexible, of course. Just because they're not available on your time does not mean that they don't want to talk to you. It means they have a very busy life. And I know this is going to come to it as a shock, but you guys actually have a lot more free time than most lawyers in terms of being able to allocate when that free time is. So be flexible. Any questions about the idea of approaching someone for an informational interview, what kinds of things to ask or what not to? Yes?
If you don't hear back from them, what's the, do you follow up with
Week to 10 days. Hi, I just wanted to follow up and see if you happen to have any time. I'd say after that first follow-up, that person's not going to talk to you. And don't take it personally. That person might be in trial. That person might have a sick mother whom they're caring for on the side, and they just don't have the time for you. But good question.
When I asked a lot of my friends whether or not they've done informational interviews, they're kind of hesitant because they're afraid of being shot down. They feel like it won't really work out. Do you have any personal experiences for what the success rate is?
Absolutely. I'd say 1 in 3 people responds to you. That's my anecdotal evidence for that. That doesn't mean they don't like you. And by the way, consider this. In every legal case, one side has to be the loser. You are entering a field where you are inherently going to lose a lot. So just because not every email of yours gets answered does not mean you're doing it right, wrong, or indifferent. It means someone didn't answer. That's okay. You should be willing to contact a lot of people. The other trick I'll put into this, create a spreadsheet right now in Google Docs. Employment stuff. Call it that. Every single person you've ever spoken to and what their reaction was, you want to graph out so you know to whom you have spoken and when. Then you can keep track of what letters you've written, the people you have to whom you've spoken, so that someone calls you up and says, yeah, let's talk about this. You pull up that thing and say, oh yeah, I spoke to Mary. We had a great conversation about IP. And there it is on your spreadsheet, because you're never going to remember all this information. Other quick questions before we move on? Okay.
Okay, so in order to help students connect with Santa Clara Law alumni, Law Course Services has a LinkedIn group. And there was a discussion on it last month. It was yesterday, I looked, it was still at the top of that LinkedIn group in terms of discussions. And the question I threw out to alumni was, can you give your best networking advice to students? And there were a number of responses. Which of the alums, and there's Starbucks coffee cards at stake here, gave the longest response? Yes? It was Eric Hutchins. Eric is a prolific writer and responder on those LinkedIn questions, discussions that I throw out. So, do you know anything about Eric?
He graduated from Santa Clara Law.
He did, indeed. Okay. So, Eric is a 2006 graduate. He is an attorney over at Kilpatrick, Townsend, and Stockton, and an IP litigator. All of these people actually responded on that question. Some of them, all of them, a shorter response than Eric. So the coffee cards, not only is it to make a little fun in here today, but also the idea is that, since we're talking about informational interviews, you actually have a coffee card to say, why don't you and I connect, and we have, and the first cup of coffee's on me, okay? So, there's going to be other coffee cards and other trivia questions that are going to be coming up here. Let's talk a little bit about cover letters and their purpose. So, it really is a marketing piece. Everything's a marketing piece. Your cover letter, your resume, it's all a marketing piece. But your resume is a different document than a cover letter, right? It's not like you get to write something in your resume that says, this is the time when I had a personal circumstance that prevented me from entering the job market. Or it's not the time where you get to expand necessarily on some really cool thing that you did that is a really good fit for that job. It's not the place where you get to write about how you have interviewed other people that have talked about that practice area that you're interested in and indicated that you've done that. So it's a different kind of document. And the cover letter is the place where you get to explain stuff, you get to indicate that I've done my research, and it's really the place where you get to ask the question of, what does that employer need to know about me? And again, in order to provide some value. There are some myths. One of the myths out there is that employers don't really read these things. They're really not that important. For those of you that came to the resume workshop yesterday, you heard the opinions of 2 recruiters that are working with larger law firms. Very large organizations that get hundreds, thousands of applications for a limited number of slots. And because of their size and their economy of size and the number of applications coming into them, they're using some computer technology that does searching for keywords. And they'll say, well, the cover letter, you know, we run it through this program. Okay, not every employer out there is a large law firm. And in fact, they represent only a segment of the legal profession. The wider number of employers are someone other than large law firms, and they read these things. In fact, I know Professor Rauch was talking about the fact that she's had an experience with this. You want to talk about that?
Yes, it happened to be a public interest firm, and not a huge law firm, but I talked to one of the attorneys who said they got about 100 applicants. So 100 cover letters, people looking for a job. And the first thing they did was to read the cover letters, and they put to the side those that were not well written. Either there were spelling errors, grammar errors, just something that didn't make it look professional, and put to the side those who it was a generic cover letter. Basically, I'm a law student, I'm interested in the job, I'm about to graduate, and I think this would be an interesting job. Instead, what they reserved for the actual interview process were those letters that were obviously drafted well, written well, no errors, but also identified why there was a close fit between that applicant, that law student, and that particular practice. So they said, those are the people we want to talk to. And they whittled it down from 100 to about 7 or 8 attorneys. And if a public interest firm is doing that, and I do public interest work, right, you can imagine other firms. They really, really want to make the right choice. And that cover letter is their first indication of who you are. It speaks a whole lot more than a resume that's, well, it's still bullet points, but I'm saying, is not in prose. It doesn't really say kind of a lot about you in the way that prose writing does. So yeah, that's not the only person from whom I heard that.
No, in fact, there's a graduate named Rod Strickland who's a partner at Wilson Sonsini, another organization that has a lot of applications. And once you get through the recruiters, Rod, there's still a bigger pile of resumes and documents than of people that they can interview. And so Rod is actually looking for reasons to disqualify people, to whittle down the pile of applications. And when you hear Rod talk, he'll actually use hand motions, and he'll go, yep, I'm like looking and going, oh, this person wants bankruptcy. We don't do that. Resume goes out. And so these documents, your cover letters, which is where someone's going to say that they're looking for bankruptcy, right? It's not going to be on your resume. These things they do get read and they are important. So, this is the next trivia question. What percentage of lawyers, and this comes from ABA data, from the American Bar Association, what percentage of lawyers practice either as solo practitioners, these are lawyers who are in private practice, of all lawyers in private practice. So we're not looking at government lawyers, we're not looking at public interest people, corporate lawyers, and in-house. Of those in private practice, what percentage are solo and in firms of somewhere between 2 to 10 attorneys? Yes, go ahead.
58.
How many?
58.
50? You would be wrong. Okay, Starbucks coffee card at stake here, yes.
C, 69.
Yes, it was 69%. How many of you are surprised to see that percentage?
No,
Not surprised?
I wasn't surprised. Most lawyers I know work in small firms, or really small firms.
Okay. I think it's so easy when you hear a firm like DLA Piper talking about how they have 2,000, 1,800, whatever, however many, lawyers worldwide, to sit there going, holy cow, everyone must work for that organization. And they just don't. So, we're now going to talk a little bit about job searching, your message and your image control, and why don't I have my legal writing professors talk a little bit about how you can begin to build this document that's going to be in prose and the types of things that you might be putting into it.
No worries. So, step one is the analyze your skills, interests, and background. That was what the informational interview portion of it is. That's how you learn what it is you want to do. Assessing the needs of legal employers. This is again where your research is going to be vital. And this is again where that magic spreadsheet you keep of firm name. In one column you might have what it is they do. This is an IP litigation firm, so you don't want to, of course, approach them and say, hey, let's talk about your bankruptcy practice. You'll end up in a recycling bin, or as a coaster. Which is actually better than being in the recycling bin, because then they might see it again. Assessing the needs of legal employers, again, will come from specifically speaking to the people who work at that firm. You are looking for an associate. You are looking for a part-time doc review person. You are looking for a law clerk, someone who has gotten a JD but has not yet passed the bar exam. You are looking for someone who has fluency in Cantonese. That's probably a relevant piece of information you want to know if you're applying for a law firm that requires you to speak a different language. All of that is your homework that you are required to do. And yes, it's long, it's annoying, and it takes time. Welcome to the legal profession. In terms of and then making the fit between your background and meeting the employer's needs, this is where you can get a little creative. Law students will come in to me and say, I did a thing with the Georgia Catherine Alexander Law Clinic, I really liked it, but then I was on the High Tech Law Journal. I don't know, how do I market myself to be a good match for that firm? Well, that's the tying together, the marrying of what your skills and interests are with what the firm does. This is where the targeted cover letter is going to be far more persuasive and far more interesting. If you can paint a picture of, I am very interested in litigation and that's what you people do. And here are all the things I've done. I helped file documents with this, I wrote an appellate brief in this class, I did a moot court competition where I did this kind of research. You can paint yourself as a litigator. You can take the exact same resume and paint yourself as someone who's really interested in IP transactional work. How? You focus on those things that you have on your resume that look like what it is that employer does. That tying together is probably the link that does not happen for most people, because you either don't know what you want or you have not done your homework to tie together what it is that they need. The employer does not want to hear a regurgitation of your resume saying, here are my skills. They want to hear, what's in it for me? Why should I bother looking at you? Why should I take up some partner's 20 minutes of time that they could otherwise bill $600 an hour to a client, and they're going to talk to you? Yeah, they're going to talk to you because you have the skills that they need, that you have shown some sort of painted picture that you can demonstrate that is going to be helpful to them. And the last bit, of course, is the basics. The easiest thing in the world is to take all the letters that have misspellings, crappy grammar, are on too many pages, they misspelled the partner's name, you put the wrong firm name in the letterhead, oh my God, this happens, or one of the very common things, not very common, but one of the biggest pitfalls is you get the gender wrong of the dear Mr. or Ms. If you'd like to separate yourself easily, please make those mistakes. I tell that to my students all the time, like, hey, if you guys want to make this easy on me in terms of forcing you into a curve, screw everything up. I'll just dump you into C-land. Real easy. Same thing on a cover letter. You want to get yourself kicked out really easy, quick, and efficiently? Do it. Misspell things. This last step, by the way, I would say is an absolute bare minimum. It's embarrassing. We've all done it, and I absolutely did it my second year when I was going out to all these employers. I got a very polite letter saying, "Dear Mr. Flynn, you seem to have applied to the wrong law firm because you put some other law firm's name in the caption. Thank you." Ooh. I guarantee that I'm in a file somewhere, and guess what? I'm never getting a job with that law firm, which is fine. So, the image control portion of this is also being willing and able to look at your own resume and spin yourself, right? You're being trained to be advocates for your clients, so be an advocate for yourself. Be willing to say, this experience was not all about helping people who were indigent get this kind of relief in this kind of bankruptcy proceeding. No, it was about economic document review. And you can spin that into whatever it is that the firm needs. So always be willing to reshape yourself, to rebrand yourself, and to control your message. While I'm here talking about messaging, who in here has heard of the Facebook? You're all lying if you're not raising your hand. That's fine too. You all have a Facebook profile, and I know you've been told this, but I really want to make sure you understand it. The first thing someone does when they find you in a pile is they Google your sorry butt. The first thing that pops up for most of you is going to be your LinkedIn profile or your Facebook profile. I will highly recommend right now, today, you create a professional Facebook page. One that has all of your searchable information. The fact that you go to Santa Clara Law, the fact that you went to Cal for undergrad, the fact that you, etc. That has a couple nice, lovely looking headshots, or you posing with a baby, or something else happening. It doesn't have you face down in the bar from Rush Week your freshman year of college, which I'm sure some of you do. I have a professor Facebook page, so if all of you search for me, you'll find happy headshot and things about the law. You won't find me passed out in the bar last weekend. I actually was hanging out with a baby, so I should probably put that photo on the thing. But don't allow yourselves to get sacked before you start because you don't know how to control your image. LinkedIn is another tool that I highly recommend you get involved with. The legal community has been a bit slower than the rest of the business community in terms of jumping on the LinkedIn bandwagon. It is happening, but again, Google yourself. If you have a really generic name like Michael Flynn, you can hide. If you don't have a generic name, best of luck. But control your image. It is yours. You are, for all intents and purposes, today, attorneys. And people will look at you that way if you choose to present yourself that way.
Okay, so let's talk about the basics, the basic nuts and bolts of building your cover letter. Okay, how many of you have already had the experience of turning a document in for class and getting dinged some points because the header was in the wrong place, the staple was in the wrong place, okay. So, yeah, let me tell you a story that was true. It's not going to happen to any of you because computer systems have changed. But this is one of my friends. We were both judicial law clerks. And she was clerking for the judge in the next chamber over. We'd gone to the same school. She graduated a year ahead of me. So we knew each other from school. And we'd been applying for judicial clerkships. She applied all over the place. And she got this letter back from this one judge. It was her cover letter. It was a letter from the judge, and it included in the envelope her cover letter. And this letter from the judge said, "Dear Ms. So-and-so, thank you for your application for this judicial clerkship. Being a judicial law clerk means that you have to pay a high degree of attention to detail to what you are writing on behalf of the court. We are therefore rejecting your application because on your cover letter there is a mistake. And back in those olden days, when we used DOS operating systems, you had to, as you were drafting these letters, you had to go in and you had to actually tell the computer, yes, this is the document I want to save. And every now and then, and you would hit the Y button that said yes. Every now and then, that document would print out with this errant Y somewhere on it. And it happened to her. The cover letter was otherwise pristine, formatted correctly, but there was this errant Y on it. And she got back her cover letter with this red circle around the Y that was on the document. She just about died. She was like, I said, I'm never finding a job. She found one. She sent out other cover letters without the errant Y on it. But, you know, it's like these things, you know, format is important. Format's really important in this profession. So let's talk about format. Now back in the olden days when I was in junior high, you actually took a typing class on a manual typewriter. And you had to roll the paper in and you had to like space things out and you had to hit this bar to get the carriage return to go. And you learned how to format letters. Because we used to send letters, hard copy letters to people, not just electronically or by fax or whatever, you know, I've seen the evolution of all of it. You need to still send people, even though you're electronically sending documents, you need to send them a document that looks like a letter that they actually, in the olden days, put in the envelope and mailed off. And this is one way that you might format your name, your contact information, the date, an address block, name of the person, the organization, their street address, and then a salutation. You notice it's Dear Ms., the last name, and then a colon. Okay, it's not a comma on business correspondence. This was also, my judge's secretary rejected someone. She was the first one in the office that looked at the applications for judicial law clerks. She rejected someone because they used a comma in the salutation. It went back to attention to detail, you're representing the court. Okay, so someone who could have otherwise been a perfectly appropriate candidate for that job, rejected because they used a comma. Oh, I mean, believe that. Here's another option. All of you are producing resumes. Go onto your resume. Do a copy and paste of your contact information on the resume. Paste it onto, document, an open document. What's otherwise a plain document in Word. Now you've got your own stationery. There you go. Still got the date, name of the person, salutation, all of that. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about these formats. I generally use 3 paragraphs on my cover letters. They're just easy to remember. You can have 4. Generally don't go over a page unless the employer gave you specific instructions. Every now and then one of the government agencies will give you very detailed instructions, and it results in a cover letter where you feel like you have now detailed your entire life. That's rare, but it happens every now and then. So in those cases, which are the more common cases, you want to generally be at about 3, maybe 4 paragraphs. My first paragraph is fairly transactional. It explains the job that I'm applying for, how I got there, why I want to perform that job. My second paragraph has to tell the employer my story. This is where, and this is maybe the second and third paragraph, but this is really the very most important piece of that cover letter. It is that nexus between me and the employer that we've been talking about. All about that message, all about that image control. It's right here. 1 to 2 paragraphs. And then I've got to close my letter. So that's the final paragraph. It's where I need to thank them for being gracious with their time and considering my application. It's where if I have other documents attached to in my email, I need to tell them what else is being attached. It's where I need to let them know that I will be available for an interview. And then I need to close out. Okay, so we've got some more trivia questions. Whoops, I think I went past one. Okay, so this is how well do you know your legal research and writing professors? Okay, Professor Flynn, Professor Flynn had a life before he came to Santa Clara. It wasn't just like generated here. Okay, so in his former life, where did he work as a legal research attorney? Yes?
C.
It is C. Woohoo! Okay, we got another trivia question coming up. So, Professor Rauch also doesn't just live her life in the law school building, and she's had experiences outside of it. So for which organization has she done some volunteer work? Yes? B? It is B. Okay, I'm now going to turn time over to the two professors to talk about some sample cover letters. We have, I'm going to pass them out right now, the sample cover letters. So we've got some examples of students who are trying, and we're trying to be persuasive. And by the way, those of you who have won Starbucks coffee cards need to come see me afterwards. I just need to capture your name to go into the expense reporting, the accounting program for the school, and I need your names. So.
Dean Huebner, because it's been really tight economic times, and law students are paying a lot of money to go to law school, get yourself in debt, and then say, but I'm anticipating a new job. And it's been hard, but she and her office have worked tirelessly, honestly, not only to find jobs, but to expand the search for jobs for students, to make contacts no longer just in the Northern California area, which was kind of the norm for many years, not just in the Southern California area, but lots of places, and really, really reaching out to a lot of law firms, be they small or large, to say, we have good students at Santa Clara, we want to make sure you know about them, we want you on our campus interviewing them. So I know Michael would agree with me. I mean, they are there to help you as much as they can. Some of it is on your shoulders, there's a lot of work you have to do, but they're there to work with you on the resumes, the cover letters, etc., identifying employers. You know those people, you know what firms are looking for. They talk to you after the student's interview. So I'm saying it's a great resource. I know she'd like to promise everybody a job, but you know what they do promise is they will make every effort possible, and then they've combed, you know, way beyond places, way beyond what the career services used to do. So do take advantage of all those efforts. Okay, so I want to talk about a cover letter. I'm going to start with one that I wrote. My name is Billy Bronco. I'm going to show you because I really want a law job. And before I show it to you, I do want to reiterate this thing about the importance of cover letters, because I think students, and correctly so, say it's that writing sample that's going to open the door. They're going to look, and if I can write well, I mean, that's just the first step, but that's really critical. The cover letter is just kind of a little additional thing, and they glance at it. But they move quickly to the cover letter. I'm sorry, to the writing sample. That's just not true. They look at that cover letter, in part because it gives them information about you. Will you be a good fit? But for a second reason, a lot of law firms think, okay, we know you spent time on the writing sample. Did you pay as much attention to detail on this other? So it's kind of, maybe it's the dog wagging, no, tail wagging the dog, whatever. But it's the reality of it. So that cover letter really is important. It's not just something they fire and then run to the sample, writing sample that you've done. So let's take a look. I don't know if there's a way to reduce the light a little bit. Backlighting. Thank you. Okay. And Dean Huebner had said, well, the first thing, you got to look at that opening paragraph. And you want to introduce yourself. Who are you? What is this about? What are you looking for? And my name is really Wilhelmina. That was what my parents named me, but I call myself Billy, okay? So you are a firm, and this is the first thing you read, first paragraph. And I'd like your reaction to my application to your firm. Okay? Am I someone you'd be interested in? So just read that opening paragraph. heard a bit of laughter. Yes.
Yeah,
I haven't persuaded you that I'm the person for the job. Look how I'm going to benefit by your hiring me.
Most of the sentence start with I.
Yes. Well, Michael said sometimes lawyers have egos, but yeah, you want to hide that ego. Okay. Yeah, I. It's just not a good idea. So it seems simple, like, wait a minute, who would be bothered by I? But the focus is placed on the applicant, really not on, what is you going to offer to this place? What is this really about?
It's not very personalized. If you took out clerkship in your court, you could replace it with any other legal firm
Yeah.
and be the same thing.
Yeah, there's really not a connection or a nexus between who I am and what this particular job is. And if you also look, based on, after researching numerous opportunities, I decided to apply for a clerkship in your court. Does that not sit well with you? What does that suggest?
I mean, it sounds kind of arrogant.
Well, look at everything. I decided this is the court I want. That's not the way it's going to work. I mean, I'd like to be on the national women's soccer team. It's never happening, okay? I don't understand why, but it's not. Yeah, so it's really not about just about me. What's bothersome or just wrong about the third sentence? I feel like working for you would help me. That may be true. I mean, no firm or a court is going to say it's all to their benefit. Hopefully those internships, externships, initial jobs make you a better lawyer, but yes.
It doesn't speak to how your skills are going to help them.
Yes, the focus is not on me and what I want and how it will benefit me. It's why should they hire me? How are they going to benefit? So it's personal in the sense I'm talking about myself, but it doesn't accomplish the goals of who am I? I'm a law student. What am I looking for? It's a little too much about how this is going to be an advantage to me to be at your court that I've decided is the best one to be at. I may be thinking all those things. Obviously, we're looking for jobs where we think we're going to be able to advance, we're going to enjoy it, we're going to do well, we're going to benefit from it. But right now, it is much more a seller's market still than a buyer's market. And it is important for them to know why they should hire you. One little kind of war story heard. It was about a year ago. There were firms that came to campus and they said one of the paradigmatic shifts now in the practice of law is the bigger firms have clients coming to them, like in the high-tech area, and say, we will pay you $10,000 to take this case. Well, that's a tremendous shift. It used to be they'd go to the firm and the firm would say, of course we'll take the case from you and we'll bill you accordingly. X $600 an hour, whatever. We'll let you know what the final bill is. No, it's the clients now often setting the contours, the parameters for the pay. Well, as a result, law firms are saying, we have to have people in here who can do the work, do it well, and we're not getting paid as much. So the pressure, there's a lot of pressure on firms from a client, and then that firm in turn places a lot of pressure on students or new attorneys to really be up to speed pretty quickly. So again, it's just yet another reason to make sure that they know why you'll be a good fit for that firm. Well, perhaps the next paragraph will convince you. Let me look at the time just quickly, because I want to look at another letter that is done much better. That will convince you that I'm the proper person for the job. I didn't use the word I until the second word in the first sentence. I'm a little less egotistical.
Put a lot of effort into their calculation of their GPA.
Yes, I spent a whole day doing just that. Okay, it may be true, but the resume is going to reflect that. First of all, they're going to be able to see certain things. And again, if you're the employer, what have you not learned about that you need to know when you're looking at 100 leads?
There are really specific skills.
Yeah, why am I a good fit for this court? I need to be able to talk about, and that's what Dean Huebner talked about when she showed you the rules. What is it I bring to the job? Okay, that's really what's crucial. When faculty come here for interviews, I can tell you that's the question that's asked. What do you bring to Santa Clara? How do you fit in here? What experience have you had that would benefit the students, the school, the wider university? It's not just what have you done? I did very well in law school. Well, okay, but they're assuming that you've done basically your job. It's what in particular will make sure that you can do a very, very good job for them. That's the information they're looking for. And it's blatantly missing here, okay? And some of it, am I correct, would still appear in the resume. So it's not that they won't know that, but you don't need to simply repeat what's on your resume, okay? So if we can now do one of the other letters that I think I did a better job. And, yeah, that's fine. And you have these. That's the very long. Sorry. So let's take a look now. Here at this opening paragraph and see if I look a little different than I did in my ability Bronco opening paragraph. So we can you can see here, just for time's sake, now I've told them why it is I want to be with that particular firm. Okay, what is my background? What in my background is said, that's what I want to pursue. And that's underscored when I'm particularly interested in doing a particular kind of work. I had background in intellectual property and antiquities law, prompted me to seek out your firm, assuming that's what that firm does. But already they're beginning to identify who they are, identifying myself, but I'm saying why it is that that firm is attractive, why your firm is attractive to me, okay? Yeah, it's a bankruptcy firm, I'm going to change it. It's a family law firm. Assuming what I'm saying is correct, I've had those experiences. That's my interest. Okay. Yes. Sometimes you're just interested in the job. I realize that. You may not know the direction you want to go. But you want them to know why that particular firm. If you're interested, for example, in smaller firms, you need to let them know, I just prefer the opportunities available there. Here's what I bring to that. You know, I'm not saying every little word is absolutely the truth, because sometimes you're not certain what you want to do, but you have to give them some indication of why that firm is the person from which you're going. Second paragraph, okay? The opening line already is different from who I was or how I portrayed myself in ability. Bronco. What I've done during law school and even prior to will make me a valuable contribution to this law firm. Because it is what it's about. You've got to make them see you as valuable. And if you can outline, detail those skills, those experiences, they say, you know, that's a good fit. Not only do they know that, but they also know that you understand what the firm is about. You've taken the time to research, okay? So this is a much better example of how you prepare a writing sample. I'm sorry, not writing sample. A cover letter, so they're then willing to go the next step and read that writing sample, okay? You can see that in addition to law school experience, they've talked about other projects that might open the door to the job. They're going to say, well, that's good. For example, law firms were saying in the same meeting a couple of years ago, some students have skills that aren't law-related or they don't think of it as valuable, that you're fluent in Cantonese and Mandarin and Spanish, whatever. And they say, students don't tell us that. And in fact, it's a great help. Okay, if you're going to do any kind of work in other countries or clients who come here. So it's part of going back to the very beginning of this talk, assessing your own skills. They aren't just about research and writing, because some of those soft skills, if you want to call them, are really critical too. So assess yourself. What else do I bring to this firm in addition to just certain courses, particular set of grades, maybe experience at the law center where I've drafted documents? What else might be of value? Well, you may not know what's of value until you research that firm. What do they do? Are they worldwide? Then I'm going to stress any language I may speak or am fluent in, I read, I write, whatever. It can make the difference, okay? And that's the kind of information, we have just a few minutes left, but kind of information you need to present to the employer. Really think about what do they need, where is that same experience I have, or what do I have that's going to meet that need, and that's what you want to talk about in the cover letter. So, just to underscore what everybody's been saying, then it's not just a repetition of your resume. It is something quite different than a resume. It's, I would say a bio, I'm not sure if I would say it, But
It's almost a brand, that you're looking to brand yourself.
yeah, and you're persuading them that you're the person that they should hire. Okay, so I don't know, we've got a third letter that they have, but I don't think there's time.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, we're going to skip on from that.
Are there any
And-
questions on letters for any of us? Yes.
I had a question. That paragraph where where Sally Santa Clara talks about her experience working for the history, San Jose and all that, I don't see why any of that just can't be condensed into a resume.
It might. I think it depends on how that would correlate with something that the firm is doing.
So this
And if they
firm
are.
was doing art antiquities type law. So what's she doing? She's trying to build a brand. She's trying to build and tell a story of, I'm a person who has this experience of dealing in the art, the museum world. And here's evidence of that experience. So she's building this brand and she's building a case for being the type of person that would be an interesting type of person that would relate to clients that are in that art antiquities business. And so as again, it's all about, it's back to writing, it's persuasive writing. Okay, it's all the things that you're learning in Laura, which is whenever I go to talk to students, they're like, my cover letter, and I'm like, Laura. It's all about Laura. And it's all about persuasive writing, and it is back to you becoming an attorney and thinking through, how am I building a case for me? Or becoming the marketer who says, how am I building the brand of me? What's my brand for this particular job that makes sense with regard to that organization?
And I think maybe even if they had this on your resume, the resume not fully capture what it is you want to talk about, what you did when you were there that you think would really intrigue the clients for that firm. You want to describe in a little more depth what that job involved, or that volunteer thing, and show them it's really going to enhance my ability to understand what goes on in the firm. Not just the legal aspects of it, but kind of the contours or the facts. So I could see including that if the resume wouldn't capture all of it, or a one-line statement.
Okay, so since we've been talking all about persuasive writing, if you're a 1L, you have an extracurricular chance to practice your persuasive writing this year. Which one is it? Yes.
Is it Galloway?
It is Galloway. So hopefully you'll all take advantage of that opportunity. Okay, so since we're running so close to time, let's see here if there's any final questions or a final question. We've got time for that right now. If not, and you won one of the coffee cards, come see me. I need to take your name down. And we're here. We're here to answer questions.